I don't know if you're like me, but if you look back on your life, there are certain moments that you remember that kind of gave you a good punch in the stomach, and especially when you weren't necessarily expecting it, but then maybe were happy with the end result. And what do I mean? Well, I'm going to give you one particular example, and it's when I was in my first year of theology. So it was my third year of seminary. I'd already been through what's called pre-theology. So if you enter with a bachelor's degree, you have to get another bachelor's in philosophy before moving into theology. So I finished the philosophy part. I'm in my first year of like the grad studies part in theology. And the story was with this teacher of this class, who was also the academic dean, that if you turn in a rough draft, you're almost always going to get an A. Like, that's the way that it works. I'd never turned in a rough draft in my life. And I thought, well, you know what? We're going to do this. I'm going to get this rough draft in. I just assume that once I turn this in, there will be loud acclamations and chanting, "Oh, you're so wonderful. Look at how good you are." And also, my parents were coming to town that weekend because it was like a visiting, like, parents, family come and see weekend. And I remember I got the thing done. I turned it in to, his name was Dr. Ross, Deacon Dr. Michael Ross, who has since passed away. God bless him. Turned it in on Thursday. Friday, I'm in our bookstore, kind of just, ready for my parents to come to town, looking around. I see him, and I'm like prepping myself for the congratulations I'm about to receive. I think you know where this is going, or you wouldn't be chuckling. So he says, "I'd like to see you in my office." And I think, probably to award me with some giant check. And so I say, "Sure, when do you like?" He's like, "Just as soon as you can." I'm like, "All right, I'll see you in 10 minutes. So I go back to my room, drop off my stuff. I go to see him. He has all of my transcripts out on his desk, and I don't know how many red pens he used, but he must have murdered like 3 of them because they had bled everywhere on my paper. And he basically moved through it line by line, explaining why, like, I'm the worst writer he's ever seen, and how in the world did you get this GPA as an undergrad, and if you continue to write stuff like this, you'll never... That, just destroyed me, right? So I go back to my room, I pulled up the file, I hit Control-Alt, right? Control-Alt-Delete. I just deleted the whole thing. Like, normally, when you have a paper, it's like, okay, how do I fix this? He had murdered it, and I was like, all right, I'll just finish the job and bury it. So it was gone, and I went and just sat in the chapel for a while, just questioning my life, right? So now, long story short, not to scare you, I eventually became a priest. But I'm in there, and just like, it was a tough thing. Now, the fact of the matter was, yes, I had already completed my undergrad degree. I had done well. I was a communication major, but also a political science major, and I knew how to say a lot of things without saying a lot of things. And this particular professor didn't care for that in the area of theology, and he called me on it, in a pretty severe way, and it was a strong gut punch that to this day, I'm grateful that he gave me. And yes, it was hard to receive. I didn't particularly enjoy it, but I would say my next years of seminary were a lot more successful because of that tough love. I remember a couple years ago, there was an initiative from an organization called Amazing Parish. They sent this book to every pastor in the United States called The Better Pastor, and it's by a guy named Pat Lencioni. He's a big sort of like CEO trainer, best business practices. And he kind of turned his eye, he's a practicing Catholic, wonderful man, and taking all these like good business practices and applying them to the Catholic parish. And, he likes to start all of his books. There's one called Death by Meeting. There's like the 5 dysfunctions of a team. He's got a lot of them. This one, The Better Pastor, it starts off with a fable, like all of them, where there's a guy waiting for the priest on a Sunday evening after all the Sunday masses to have a conversation with him. And it's like, "Father, I want to talk to you about a few things." "Yeah, what's that?" "I'd like to talk about Marge at the front desk." "Why?" "Marge is awful to everyone. Like, why is that okay?" "Well, Marge has her way." And by the way, that isn't Marge Lentz. Like, I'm just throwing a name out there. It's no one in particular. He's saying Marge. But, it's like, why, he said, "Here's the thing. Down at Chick-fil-A, if one of them was like that, they wouldn't last very long. And they're just selling chicken sandwiches. Like, you're working for the salvation of souls." And now, this isn't like there was nobody in particular, but there were a lot of things like that. And once again, it was like Pat Lencioni reached out of the book and punched me in the guts. And I went, okay, like I get it, okay. It's one of those things where I say, like, all of these different big challenges, who likes to be challenged, right? Who wants to have a mirror held up and say, this is what you need to change. This is what you need to do. But as you look at all of these readings today, our Lord's pretty harsh. And of course, as you see, and as it was written down on the sign, I've come to set the earth on fire. and now I wish it were already blazing. Do you think I have come to establish peace on this earth? Notice it as you drive out. It's funny to me. We forgot the E on establish. See, once again, we're drawing a mirror. We're putting it up. We're going to deal with it. It's great. But establish will help you to remember it. Did I just come to establish peace on this earth? No. Because what would that mean? What if it was merely worldly peace? I'll give you another personal example since I'm throwing them all out there. I went to a dermatologist for the first time ever on Wednesday because my doctor recommended it. I'm 43. That's what you do when you hit your mid-40s. So I go, and think about this. What if I go and he's looking, he's like, I'm not sure about this spot on your back. Let's just put your shirt back on. It's fine. Everything's good. We're okay. It's like, okay, I'd be peaceful. We're all good. It's all taken care of because my shirt is covering over it. That's not true. Eventually, whatever that is going to grow. Okay, I'm sorry for that image in your mind. But that's not real peace, right? Yes, we've avoided the conflict. We don't have to worry about it, but it's there. And it's growing, and it's a problem. And the thing is, when you look at what our Lord is doing here, he's saying, look, I haven't just come for easy street. This is not the prosperity gospel. I haven't come to woo you all to sleep. I've come to do what? To set you on fire. Because that's ultimately what you're made for. You're not made for mere comfort. You're made for greatness. You're made to be a saint. And sometimes that means we got to look at some pretty tough stuff. We got to make sure that we're not doing the wrong thing. And of course, in the first reading, and I know it's tough, we get a little bit of Jeremiah and a lot of mud. And there it is. We just kind of dive right into the story. But basically at this time, so Israel, they should be relying on God all the time. God should ultimately be the king, but they wanted a king. He gave him a king. He's never a good king. And so you have Zedekiah at this point. And what does Zedekiah do? It's like, we're under the power of the Assyrians, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to stop paying them tribute. We're going to go to the Egyptians. The Egyptians are going to save us from those darn Assyrians. And guess what, Assyrians? We're not going to pay you the tribute anymore because our big buddies over here, Egypt, they're going to take care of us. Well, when you stop paying the Assyrians their tribute, they tend to get upset. And so when they come to collect it, and King Zedekiah is like, hey, Egypt, remember how we were relying on you and paying you that? Can you come and take care of us now? Guess what? Egypt doesn't show up. They don't want to show up. They're not going to be there. Egypt, that ancient image of sin that Zedekiah and the Israelites yeah, let's rely on them. This will work this time. Jeremiah has been pointing this out. Guys, rely on God. Stop it. Stop trying to go to all the worldly powers. God will take care of us. If you just keep going for this and you want to keep fighting, we are going to lose. You have to just lay down. Welcome the Assyrians in. Let it be. But of course, they don't listen. Instead, they just, no, we're going to cover this over. Hey, just put your shirt back on. Don't worry about whatever's growing on your back. No. Let's just bury it in the mud. Doesn't work out, right? They're going to get destroyed. We enter into the exile at this point. They would have just listened to Jeremiah, just taken whatever the punishment is. They would have done a whole lot better. We don't even know because they get wiped out because they didn't listen to God. Now, the second reading is so helpful with this letter to the Hebrews because we go over all the different things that we got to face, the sinful tendencies that we have, the comfort that we go to, the laziness that we have, just the getting by. God doesn't want that. It's like we hear in, I think it's the book of Samuel, man sees the appearance. God sees the heart. He wants our hearts to be purified. An offense. Get away from the bad habits and the vices. Why? Because they're not good for you. Staying up until 3 a.m. watching YouTube, it's not good. I promise. I've tried it. It doesn't work, right? It's not going to ultimately make you feel better. I've whittled it down to 11. I'm doing better, but I should probably just get rid of the whole thing, right? He wants us to get rid of our faults and failings, not because he's so harsh, not because he wants to zap us, but because he wants us to be happy. He wants us to be a part of what? That great cloud of witnesses. I love that image. What is that great cloud of witnesses? All of the saints. All of those who have gone before us, and my friends, they've all had to bear their cross. You look back to Luke 9, what did Jesus say to his apostles? Unless you deny yourself and take up your cross daily and follow me, you cannot be my disciple. What has that great cloud of witnesses done? They denied themselves. They took up their crosses daily, and they followed him. Now, did they do it perfectly every single day? No. That's the beauty of studying church history, of studying the lives of the saints. They had their faults and failings. They're just like you and me. But what did they do? They clung to the cross. They imitated Jesus. For the sake of the joy that lay before him, he endured the cross, despising its shame. It's not a very good translation. It should be just disregarding the shame. It's yes, I know the cross is awful, but you know what? Who cares? Because at the end of the day, I love them all so much, and this is nothing compared to the love that I have for the people of God. That ultimately Jesus just disregards the cross because why? He's going for the resurrection and to bring us into heaven. And what does he want for us? He wants us to experience that same love. But it's not something that can just be handed over. I'm grateful that these readings come as school is beginning. Think about how empty it would be if, school begins here on Wednesday. We're like, all right, 8th grade, here's your diploma. Have a great life. Like, no, that's not going to do them any good. That's not going to help them out. Yeah, they may have the same looking piece of paper that they would get at the end, but we all know that diploma is a lot more than a mere piece of paper. I'm grateful to Dr. Ross that he helped me to see that ultimately you have to change. You have to grow. We know that's the case in school, and my friends, it's the case in real life. To become a part of that great cloud of witnesses, we have to deny ourselves and take up our cross. For the sake of the joy that lies before us, we endure the cross, disregarding the shame. Why? Because the great glory in heaven is worth so much more than all of the difficulties we will have in this life. Don't get me wrong. I know that sometimes the difficulties in this life are very much that valley of tears, and sometimes it feels like you're going to drown. But once again, we have a great cloud of witnesses. We have so many that our Lord has sent us. Prophets like Jeremiah, but we've moved beyond the Old Testament into the time of Jesus Christ, where he is giving us himself, body, blood, soul, and divinity, every single day. And the chance to go into the confessional and have that mirror raised up to us to say, yeah, I need to change here. I can't live in mere peace that just covers over the difficulties. Lord, make me like you. Help me to be holy. Help me to have that true peace that you have come to give. Not one that's merely worldly and passing and just covering over things, but one that ultimately leads to what? The fire that Jesus has come to cast on the earth. The fire of his love. My friends, as we enter into another school year, I think it's a good opportunity for all of us to say, Lord, where is it that I need to grow? Where is it that, okay, you're kind of trying to punch me in the guts? Help me not to be afraid of the punch, because ultimately, I know it leads to me standing up, leads to me following you, it leads to me being on fire with your love, and God willing, one day entering into that great cloud of witnesses. Praise be Jesus Christ.